What if I told you that the biggest breakthrough of your life wouldn't feel like winning the lottery or getting a promotion? It would feel like suddenly not caring about things that used to control you, like waking up one morning and realizing the drama that consumed your thoughts for months just doesn't exist in your world anymore. Scientists call this quantum jumping, and most people think it's just spiritual nonsense. But here's what they're not telling you. It's actually happening in labs right now, and the process is more real than you think. But before we dive into the science that's about to blow your mind, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to completely transform overnight while others struggle for years to change even the smallest habit? Why do some individuals appear to effortlessly shift into success, love, or abundance, while others remain stuck despite trying everything? The answer isn't willpower, luck, or being born with special gifts. It's understanding a process that quantum physicists have been studying for decades, but no one's connecting it to human transformation. In quantum physics, electrons don't gradually move from one energy level to another. They disappear from one orbit and instantly appear in another without traveling through the space between. No journey, no transition period, just instantaneous relocation when the right conditions are met. Recent experiments at Yale University proved that these quantum jumps aren't just random events. They can be predicted, monitored, and even reversed mid-jump. What's shocking is that this same process might be exactly how your brain rewires itself during those life-changing moments you can't explain. But here's where it gets controversial. Dr. Michel Dvorak's team at Yale discovered something that challenges everything we thought we knew about quantum mechanics. They found that quantum jumps actually have a predictable build-up phase, and more importantly, they can be interrupted and redirected mid-process. This discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community because it suggested that what appears random and uncontrollable might actually follow precise patterns that can be influenced by observation and intention. Think about it. You've experienced this before, haven't you? That moment when you finally walked away from the toxic relationship and immediately felt 10 years younger. When you quit the job that was draining your soul and suddenly the world looked different. When you stopped caring what everyone thought and miracles started showing up. Those weren't gradual changes, they were instant shifts in your entire reality. The problem is most people don't understand what actually happened, so they can't recreate it on purpose. Let me tell you about Sarah, a client who was stuck in the same dead-end marketing job for 8 years. Every day she'd wake up, scroll through social media, feel jealous of everyone else's success, and then drag herself to work while promising herself she'd start applying for new jobs tomorrow. For 8 years, tomorrow never came. Then one morning something shifted. She woke up, looked at her phone, and instead of scrolling, she deleted 3 social media apps. She walked into her boss's office and quit without a backup plan. Within 2 weeks, she had started her own consulting business. Within 6 months, she was making more than her old annual salary. When I asked her what changed, she said, "I just became someone who doesn't accept that life anymore." But here's what Sarah didn't realize at the time. Her brain had literally rewired itself overnight. Neuroscientist Dr. Joe Dispenza's research shows that when we break out of familiar emotional patterns, our neural networks can reorganize in as little as 4 days. But the quantum jump happens in an instant, the moment you stop being emotionally available for your old reality. Sarah didn't gradually build confidence or slowly develop new skills. She quantum jumped into the version of herself who was already free, and then reality rearranged itself to match that frequency. Your brain operates on neural pathways that create what scientists call your identity frequency. Every morning when you wake up and replay the same worries, check the same social media, think the same thoughts, you're reactivating the exact same version of yourself. That version has a specific vibrational signature, and according to quantum field theory, the universe responds to that signature by reflecting back matching experiences. But what happens when you completely interrupt that pattern? When you wake up and ask, what would the version of me who already has what I want do right now? And then act as if, without needing proof first. Recent research from the Institute of Heart Math discovered something that will change how you think about transformation forever. They found that your heart generates an electromagnetic field 60 times greater in amplitude than your brain and 5,000 times stronger in magnetic field strength. This field extends several feet beyond your body and changes based on your emotional state. When you shift into what they call heart coherence, a state of emotional balance and clarity, your electromagnetic signature literally changes within seconds. And here's the mind-blowing part. Other people's nervous systems can detect and synchronize with this field unconsciously. This explains why some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities while others struggle. It's not about positive thinking or manifesting. It's about broadcasting a coherent electromagnetic signal that the quantum field can lock onto and reflect back as matching experiences. But most people are broadcasting static, a jumbled mix of fear, hope, doubt, and desire that creates chaotic results in their external reality. Here's where it gets controversial. Quantum jumping doesn't require you to believe in it. It requires you to stop broadcasting the frequency of who you used to be. Most people fail because they try to add new thoughts on top of old emotions. They visualize success while still feeling broke. They affirm abundance while practicing scarcity in their daily choices. The quantum field doesn't respond to your words. It mirrors your most consistent emotional state. So if you're still emotionally rehearsing your problems, you're keeping yourself locked in the same timeline no matter how many affirmations you repeat. But here's what the gurus won't tell you. There's a dark side to quantum jumping that no one talks about. When you successfully shift timelines, you don't just gain access to better experiences, you lose access to everything that doesn't match your new frequency. Marcus, a successful entrepreneur I worked with, quantum jumped from being a struggling artist to building a multi-million-dollar company. But in the process, he lost most of his artist friends who couldn't relate to his new mindset. His family started treating him differently. His old hobbies felt hollow and meaningless. He achieved everything he thought he wanted but felt completely alone in his new reality. This is what I call the frequency isolation effect. When you jump to a higher timeline, you temporarily exist between worlds, too evolved for your old environment, but not yet established in your new one. This phase can last weeks or months, and it's where most people abort the jump and fall back into familiar patterns. They mistake the loneliness for a sign they made the wrong choice when it's actually confirmation that the jump worked. The real process happens in 5 precise steps, and none of them involve sitting in meditation for hours. But before I reveal these steps, I need to warn you about something. Once you understand this process, you can't unknow it. You'll start recognizing when people around you are stuck in old frequencies, and it might make you impatient with their limitations. You'll see through the illusions that most people accept as reality. You'll lose tolerance for drama, gossip, and complaint-based conversations. Are you ready for that level of clarity, even if it means outgrowing parts of your current life? First, recognize that the discomfort you feel when trying to change isn't resistance. It's your signal that you're approaching a jump point. In quantum mechanics, this is called energetic interference, the static between your current frequency and the one you're tuning to. Most people mistake this static for a no from the universe, when it's actually confirmation that recalibration is happening. Dr. Amit Goswami, quantum physicist and consciousness researcher, explains that this discomfort is your consciousness expanding beyond the limitations of your current identity structure. Let me give you a practical example. Lisa had been trying to start her own business for 3 years but kept sabotaging herself with analysis paralysis. Every time she got close to launching, she'd find new reasons to delay. More research needed, website wasn't perfect, not enough savings. The discomfort she felt wasn't fear of failure. It was her consciousness trying to quantum jump into entrepreneurial identity while her familiar self clung to employee safety. The static between these two frequencies created the paralysis. Second, the moment you catch yourself falling into old emotional patterns, interrupt them immediately. Change your posture, speak out loud, do something physical. Neuroscience shows that pattern interruption is the fastest way to break neural coherence and create space for a new choice. But here's the advanced technique most people miss. You need to interrupt the pattern before it fully activates. This requires developing what I call frequency awareness, the ability to catch yourself in the first 2 seconds of an old emotional loop before it takes over your nervous system. Dr. Rick Hanson's research on neuroplasticity reveals that negative emotional states can be interrupted and redirected within the first 90 seconds of activation. After that, stress hormones flood your system and lock you into the familiar pattern for hours or even days. This is why timing is crucial. You need to develop the skill of recognizing the micro-signals that precede your emotional reactions. The slight tension in your jaw before you get defensive, the subtle drop in your chest before you feel anxious, the familiar thought pattern that always leads to self-doubt. Third, embody the frequency of your desired timeline for at least 90 seconds. Don't visualize having what you want. Feel how you would feel if you already had it. The field measures your signal, not your circumstances. But here's the part that will shock you. Recent research shows that your nervous system can't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you fully embody the frequency of your desired reality, your brain releases the exact same neurochemicals as if that reality were already happening. Dr. Elia Crumb's studies on placebo effects demonstrate that when people truly believe they're receiving a beneficial treatment, their bodies produce measurable physiological changes: increased metabolism, improved immune function, reduced pain perception. Your quantum jump works the same way. When you embody your desired frequency with complete conviction, your body starts producing the biochemistry of that reality before it manifests externally. But here's where most people mess this up. They try to embody abundance while their bank account shows scarcity, and the contradiction creates cognitive dissonance that weakens the signal. The key is to find emotional states that you can authentically access right now. Instead of trying to feel wealthy, feel grateful for what you already have. Instead of trying to feel loved, feel loving toward others. Instead of trying to feel successful, feel proud of small accomplishments. These authentic emotions create a coherent signal that the field can amplify. Fourth, take one action from your new identity immediately. Not to get something, but to demonstrate the shift has already happened. Maybe it's a message you send, a boundary you set, or a choice you make that the old version of you never would. This creates what physicists call entanglement. The field begins reflecting back proof because your signal became measurable in physical reality. But the action must be congruent with your new frequency, not forced or performed to convince yourself the change is real. Here's a powerful example. Rachel had been trying to transition from corporate law to life coaching for 2 years, but kept making excuses about not being qualified enough. After learning about quantum jumping, she realized she was waiting for external validation to give herself permission to be a coach. So she took one simple action from her new identity. She changed her LinkedIn profile to Transformational Life Coach before she had a single client. Within 48 hours, 3 people had messaged her asking about coaching services. The action didn't create the opportunity. It demonstrated that the shift had already happened internally, allowing the external world to mirror that new reality. Fifth, and this is where most people fail, detach completely from needing to see results. The moment you start looking for proof, you've stepped out of the frequency and back into fear. This doesn't mean being passive or not taking action. It means taking action from certainty rather than desperation, from abundance rather than lack, from already being the person you want to become rather than trying to become them. But here's what no one warns you about. When you successfully quantum jump, everything that doesn't match your new frequency starts falling away. Your relationships feel distant, your job feels foreign, your old habits feel toxic. This isn't failure, it's energetic realignment. You were vibrating at one frequency and your entire life was tuned to that signal. Now you've shifted to a completely different frequency, so naturally some things start drifting away. The field is removing everything entangled with your previous version. This is the void stage, the sacred in-between, where your old timeline loses grip but the new one hasn't fully materialized yet. Your nervous system will be tempted to go back, to reach for the familiar, to apologize for changing. But this is exactly when reality starts bending. What most people call tests from the universe are actually echoes of your past frequency bouncing back one last time, asking if you're sure about this jump. You don't answer with words, you answer by continuing to embody your new frequency even when nothing changes yet. Let me tell you about the void stage from personal experience. When I first quantum jumped from being a struggling freelancer to running a successful business, I went through 3 weeks where nothing made sense. My old clients stopped contacting me, but new ones hadn't appeared yet. My previous social circle felt completely foreign, but I hadn't found my new tribe. I questioned everything. Maybe I was delusional. Maybe I should go back to my safe freelance work. Maybe I wasn't meant for bigger success. Every day I had to choose between the fear of the unknown and the certainty of my new identity. The breakthrough came exactly when I stopped looking for external validation and fully committed to being the person I had decided to become. Then something shifts. A message from someone who can help you. An opportunity that didn't exist before. A synchronicity so perfect it makes you laugh. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations that the field has locked onto your new broadcast. Recent research shows that quantum systems can be caught mid-jump and redirected, proving that these transitions follow predictable patterns rather than random chance. Your consciousness operates the same way, but here's the advanced technique that separates quantum jumpers from quantum wishers. You need to develop what I call timeline sensitivity, the ability to feel when you're slipping back into old frequencies before it becomes a full relapse. Most people only notice after they've completely fallen back into old patterns. By then, they need to restart the entire process. But when you can catch yourself in the first moments of frequency drift, you can course correct immediately and maintain your new timeline. This requires developing a practice of checking in with your frequency multiple times throughout the day. Ask yourself, right now, am I broadcasting from my future self or my past self? Your body will give you immediate feedback. Your future self feels expansive, certain, and calm. Your past self feels contracted, doubtful, and reactive. The moment you notice you've shifted into past self frequency, interrupt the pattern and return to your future self embodiment. The most powerful frequency you can hold is certainty in yourself without needing external proof. When you choose yourself repeatedly in the silence, in the unknown, in the space between who you were and who you're becoming, you send the strongest signal the universe can receive. You're saying, this is who I am, and I don't need evidence to be it. That's when the shift becomes permanent. Reality stops being a condition and becomes a confirmation of the version of you that already exists. But let's address the elephant in the room. Why do some people seem to quantum jump effortlessly while others struggle for years to create even small changes? The answer lies in what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity privilege. Some people grow up in environments that naturally develop their ability to adapt and change, while others develop rigid neural patterns that resist transformation. But here's the good news: neuroplasticity can be trained at any age. The techniques I'm sharing with you are specifically designed to override old programming and create new neural pathways that support quantum jumping. Dr. Norman Doidge's research shows that the brain can reorganize itself throughout your entire life, but it requires specific conditions: novelty, challenge, and focused attention. Quantum jumping provides all three. When you embody a frequency that's completely different from your familiar self, you're creating novelty. When you maintain that frequency despite no external evidence, you're creating challenge. When you repeatedly choose your new identity over old patterns, you're developing focused attention. These conditions literally rewire your brain to support your new reality. There's also a timing element that most people ignore. Quantum jumps are more likely to succeed during what chronobiologists call transition periods, times when your nervous system is naturally more adaptable. These include the first 30 minutes after waking up, the hour before sleep, during significant life changes, and around seasonal transitions. Your brain is already in a more flexible state during these windows, making it easier to install new patterns and release old ones. Don't look for results, look for resonance. Don't ask, is it working? Ask, am I broadcasting my future or rehearsing my past? That question will collapse old timelines and outdated versions of yourself in a single breath. When you stop seeking the shift and start being the shift, everything reorganizes around you. Not dramatically or loudly, but subtly, elegantly, inevitably. A new connection who shows up exactly when you stop needing one. An idea that emerges when you stop forcing solutions. An opportunity that makes no logical sense but every energetic sense. Here's something that might disturb you. Most people are unconsciously quantum jumping all the time, but in the wrong direction. Every time you wake up and immediately check your phone, scrolling through other people's lives while feeling inadequate about your own, you're quantum jumping into a lower frequency. Every time you watch the news and feel helpless about world events you can't control, you're jumping into victim consciousness. Every time you complain about your circumstances while taking no action to change them, you're jumping into powerlessness. The difference between successful quantum jumpers and everyone else isn't talent or luck, it's direction. They've learned to consciously choose which frequency to jump into instead of randomly bouncing between different states based on external circumstances. They've developed what I call frequency sovereignty, the ability to maintain their chosen vibrational state regardless of what's happening around them. But here's the final piece that will determine whether this knowledge transforms your life or becomes just another interesting concept you forget about. You need to understand that quantum jumping isn't a one-time event. It's a skill that requires practice. Just like learning to play piano or speak a new language, your ability to shift frequencies will improve with repetition. Your first quantum jump might feel clunky and uncertain. Your 10th will feel more natural. Your 100th will be as automatic as breathing. The people who master this process develop what I call quantum agility, the ability to shift between different versions of themselves fluidly based on what the situation requires. They can jump into confident leader mode for a business meeting, then shift into loving partner mode for dinner with their spouse, then transition into creative visionary mode for their personal projects. Each identity is authentic, but they're no longer trapped in any single version of themselves. So here's your invitation. Take one small step from this new frequency right now. Maybe it's deciding which version of yourself you're choosing to broadcast today. Maybe it's letting go of something that no longer matches. Maybe it's sitting in the certainty of your future self for just 60 seconds longer. Whatever it is, let it come from alignment, not desperation. Because that micro-broadcast of emotional certainty is exactly what your quantum field is scanning for. Not action, not perfection, coherence. And when you master that coherence, when you can return to your new frequency faster than you fall back into old patterns, you become the person who shapes reality instead of reacting to it. The question isn't whether quantum jumping is real. The question is whether you're ready to stop being a passive observer of your life and start becoming the conscious creator of your reality. Because once you understand that every moment is a choice point, every emotion is a frequency selection, and every action is a vote for the version of yourself you want to become, there's no going back to the illusion that you're stuck with who you've always been. Your future self is waiting for you to quantum jump into their reality. They're not hoping you'll figure it out eventually. They're expecting you to choose them right now, without proof, without guarantees, without knowing how it will all work out. Because that's what quantum jumping requires, the willingness to be who you're becoming before the world confirms that you've changed. And that willingness, that leap of faith in yourself, is the only permission you'll ever need to completely transform your life.